our broadcast today. If you tuned in last week, you may have seen our story about ways to combat nitrate poisoning in cattle. This week, we're talking about prussic acid, something that occurs less frequently but can be no less deadly. Recent frosts have heightened the risk of prussic acid poisoning, with plants in the sorghum family being susceptible. Nebraska Extension Forage and Crop Residue Specialist Daren Redfearn joined me to discuss causes of prussic acid poisoning and offer management strategies to help prevent animal losses.
Yeah, so prussic acid's kind of the layman's term. It's not as probably need to be more concerned with it than prussic acid, but basically what prussic acid is hydrocyanic acid, which is hydrogen cyanide. So the cyanide is the part that causes the issues in the animals.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. It can be pretty lethal to livestock, right?
Yeah, it can in pretty small doses. The toxicity is dose dependent, which is the amount or the concentration of the prussic acid in the plants, and then also related a little bit to the amount that they're able to consume. So even though prussic acid is always around in sorghum plants, is typically the species that is most problematic. Animals typically are not able to consume enough of the poison to cause much issue.
Okay, so would there be any symptoms as to what you could see if there is too much prussic acid?
Sadly, about the first symptom anyone ever notes is animal death.
Okay.
So it's pretty critical to understand a little bit about what can cause it and how to manage around it.
Okay, and I know you got your plants here for some reason because you're going to talk about some of the management protocols, management recommendations that we can do for producers. So what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so typically the prussic acid can be quite a problem during the summer months, but as those plants grow, the prussic acid becomes diluted, so they're able to graze these plants. The forage plant that it's typically most problematic in are the sorghum species. Okay, Sudan grass, the sorghum Sudan grass hybrids, and then also grain sorghum. Grain sorghum is actually the one that has the highest concentration of prussic acid. Johnson grass is another sorghum cousin that also can cause some problems. What causes the issue this time of year, though, is typically like we had in the last couple of weeks. We've had those cold spells that our temperatures are right at a little bit below freezing. Usually what we see on the sorghum plants, we'll notice the top growth of the plant is killed. These plants I've got here were protected so they don't have that top growth, but many of the plants in the pasture have a desiccated top growth. The problem we get is down to the bottom of the plant. These tillers down here are typically protected a lot by the canopy, so the temperatures will remain warm. As we've seen this week and possibly in the next week, those temperatures are going to rise up, so these growth of these bottom tillers will continue. So from a management standpoint, typically if a plant's got one tiller, like this plant that I'm holding, typically animals are not going to be able to consume enough of these that they're going to cause much of an issue. Plants that have 4 or 5 tillers on them that are taller than 5 inches tall, like this one, these are the guys here that can cause problems even if the top part of this plant is dead. So how we manage around that, one of the things that we try to manage, remember I said earlier that it's dose dependent.
Sure.
So even though the concentration is there, if the animals are full of dry hay before they go out, they're not going to be as hungry and they're not going to be able to consume enough of these young tillers to cause the problems that we've talked about earlier.